Hi friends, it's Brittany at Ink and Papyrus and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited you're here with me today because we are diving face first into a big pile of magazines. Magazines are an often forgotten about source of beautiful images. I have to tell you, after looking through some of these fashion magazines, travel and leisure magazines, seed catalogs, etc., I don't know that I will ever need to buy digital images again. And I know you all love crafting with magazines too, because one of my last magazine videos ended up being my most popular video of all time. Now, that being said, let's say you don't have a bunch of fancy magazines. Can you still craft with the ones you have? Well, I have a few local mailers that you may look at and think they would end up right in my waste bin. But I have to say, when you look at images and text in a little bit of a different light, crop images in a creative way and alter them, you can end up with some of the most gorgeous piece of ephemera. So let's make some pieces of ephemera for your junk journals. I'm going to be coming at you rapid fire with a ton of ideas, so get ready and let's get to it. Today, I'll be working from a few different magazines. I have Condé Nast Traveler, a Better Home and Gardens magazine, this National Geographic magazine too, for variety's sake, and a locally delivered magazine because I really want to show you guys that you can make pieces of ephemera for your junk journals without, you don't have to necessarily get top of the line, like fashion magazines or anything fancy. Just everyday pictures and text can be used to create some adorable pieces of ephemera. This locally delivered magazine might not have the most glamorous pictures, but it has some cute text, and I promise you it has plenty of images that we can use. So I'm just going to harvest these little pieces, and I'm going to show you kind of a step-by-step process I take for looking for things in magazines. Even if you don't, for example, want, oh my gosh, I need that piece, you don't want to miss a single thing in paradise. That's going to be so cute. Such a cute quote for a page, probably in a travel journal that I'm working on right now. Okay, so you guys get the point. But you just have to look at things in a different lens. Okay, I always say that, when I'm working harvesting magazines, just look at things through a different lens, and you can make anything into a piece of ephemera if you crop it. So, for example, I don't want a picture of an umbrella in my journal. But what if we were to make these into three things? I love the color sequence. So, for example, what if we were to make three small buttons and make a little button tag and have this blue, this purple, and whatever color this is? That would be really cute. And what if we take a small little section of her shirt, this polka dotted shirt? That's adorable. I do always check the next page to make sure there's nothing really good I'm missing out on the back. Sometimes it can be quite the quandary if the page was really cute on the front and the back. And we're going to use these sections of colors because if you only use things for how they're presented, you would be like, I mean, why? I guess you could put a cute little picture of an umbrella in your journal, but there's nothing that's shouting at me to put a picture of an umbrella in my journal. But when I see the sequence of colors, there are so many things that we can do with these. We can make page tabs out of these. We can make little clusters and color coordinate them, so on and so on. So I know this isn't at all what I said I would be creating with that umbrella, but look, these collaged parts of the umbrella with this focal point of a fairy, I love this so much. So I made this into a bookmark. I collaged the pictures. Well, I kind of cut the pictures out, the pictures of the umbrella, I collaged them on, and then filled in the gap with some watercolor. some purples, blues, pastels. This is a stamped fairy. I fussy cut her out and I went around her with glue and just put some white glitter to make her extra magical, of course. I had some other pieces of stamped ephemera, a little stamped sentiment, enjoy a very nice day. I went around it with some gold gilding wax. I added a little piece of fabric up top so that this looked a bit more like a bookmark. And of course, there's some extra journaling room on the back. Totally not what you would expect from an umbrella, but here we are. I just used the actual color combination to inspire me to make something completely different and unrelated to the finished project. I just found this ad with all of these hexagons. I'm sorry, I had to actually count them, and it says travel. Here I was thinking, like, what if we made that into a postage stamp for a travel journal or a postcard? I think that would be really cute. So here is the image of the travel hexagon. I ended up making a series of either journaling cards, I guess you could call them. The images were referencing New York's subway system, and I thought they were really cool. I just really like the purple, and I decided to fussy cut out the map. And I just really like the stitching. It kind of makes it look like a journey to me, almost, like the stitching across the page kind of makes you go like you're going from point A to point B. And so I felt like it would fit with the travel and the subway theme. And so I just very whimsically went around the image and even cut through the image a couple of times with a straight stitch. I love how this looks. And just to make the image pop a little bit more, I took some watercolors, I mixed some purple, and went around them. Now, obviously, the back is going to be filled with stitching. If you wanted to cover this up with another like thin piece of paper so that you could write on the back without interfering with the stitching, that would be something that you could easily do. So I actually don't mind that the stitching is on the back. I might even use these as pockets, but regardless, I really, really like these. A couple more pieces of text I wanted to show you is this veterinary advertisement, your best friend. I'm going to cut this out and use this as text on a page. I will probably cut this out and use this to mark a calendar. And then do you see that right there? I'm going to cover that up. I'm going to cut this out and use this as a pin on one of my journal pages to mark a location. So I hope that makes sense. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about shortly. I ended up using this text, adding this text to an existing layout. I love this layout of my dog. I actually altered this picture in a photo app that I have of him, like on a floaty with some actual little floaties on his paws and some sunglasses. And I backed this with some textured like netting, and I did add a little caption. So this came from a plastic bag from a store that I got when I was on vacation, this little whale here. And I added your best friend right here on the little pool floaty because he absolutely is my best buddy. And I thought this couldn't have been any better placed. So sometimes it's the little things. It's just like the little text you see along the way when you're looking through magazines. Consider that these little additions can really make a layout pop. This is one of my favorite travel journals from my trip to the Cayman Islands, and I ended up using this pin here. So I cut out the center, and instead of that generic advertisement, I just wrote "You're here" and plopped that pin down on a screenshot of Google Maps to approximate where we were at this beach where I took this lovely picture. And look at this little fishy, isn't he cute? Like little things like that can just really add character to your journal pages and really personalize them and make your layouts pop. These cocktail images right here are going to be absolutely perfect for something I have planned. So I'm going to harvest those as well. And your local magazines often do have a lot of drink and food recipe ideas. And I will show you how to use those in your journals as well. Did you see that picture of the roadway? I'm going to fussy cut all of this out. I think this will be perfect in a travel journal or on a journal layout where you're talking about going to a specific location. You obviously can cut out all of the details of, where the road is, but I foresee big things for this little road, so I'm going to harvest this as well. So here's another example of liking an element of something but not knowing exactly what to do with it right away. Okay, happy in the Hamptons? How would we use that? Well, forget that. Look at the flowers, look at the different colors, look at the patterns. Okay, I'm stealing this word, like happy with that little flower because that is totally adorable. And we're gonna leave the Hamptons there. That's not my style. My style is a shack on an island somewhere where I don't have to see or talk to anybody and can just be an absolute nomad. So we're gonna leave the Hamptons in the trash pile along with that potato salad recipe. Sorry for those of you who like potato salad. Okay. I'm gonna cut out the little bits of that H just so we can use the flowers in something. I know I promised you some ideas for ways you can use your recipes, but I had some other plans for these cocktail images. I decided to use that word to create an entire layout just about the things that make me happy, and this is just an amalgamation of the things I love. I use that word paradise. There's the image of the cocktail. I found an image of a pepper. I love fresh produce from the garden. Florals. I love flowers. Dogs. What girl doesn't love a good dog? And they're really all good. Things that are chic and pink and very pretty, of course, love that too. So this layout is so simple, but I love it. It represents me. And so this is my 365 journal where I basically just, it's a journal that I absolutely wreck. It's a journal of my everyday life and my adventures. And I don't have to be afraid about ruining it because it is so haphazard. It's kind of a mix of a scrapbook slash art journal slash daily journal. I could go on forever. So, I will ultimately do a flip through of this one day. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole or on too long of a tangent. I tend to do that because you guys came for ideas for magazine images, but I just absolutely love this journal. Another drink recipe. Okay, this right here. So there's no mystery as to how we can use this in our journals, but I'm probably gonna fussy cut out the lemon in the drink instead of just copying and pasting, or like instead of cutting and pasting this onto a page, which is totally fine, but I think we can really spruce it up with like a very lemony, very like special background. Ta-da! Are you loving this as much as me? I love using recipes in my journal layouts. They evoke feelings and memories, and I just love everything about this. And I promised you some ideas for sprucing up your page. I had to go with the lemony theme, so I just took the recipe and cut it out. I folded my washi tape over onto itself to add a little bit of a tab and stapled it to a page. I just happen to have this digital image already bound in my journal. It's sort of Italian style paper with olives and lemons, so it was perfect. So you don't have to copy and paste the entire image as is. You can alter it, and that's exactly what I did here. I cut out the Arnold Palmer Spirited Cousin, fussy cut out the lemon and added it right to the top, and added some more of those fussy cut lemons. Fussy cut out the drink and was brave and painted a couple of my own lemons and splattered the page with some orange watercolor paints. I love this. This take on hard iced tea has or uses spiced rum for added depth and flavor. Now, these lemons are far from perfect, but I'm still proud of them, and I think it really adds a personal touch. And I even added a quote at the bottom: when life gives you lemons, make a good stiff drink. Ain't that the truth? I was so excited to stumble onto this page. This is about an oyster company, but okay, like, look at the oysters surrounding this. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to incorporate this into my journal. I may cover this up with some gesso or I may cut out the center completely, but I have a couple of ocean themed journals going on right now and I feel like this is journal gold. I was not expecting to find this. I'm so excited. I'm actually going to struggle with what to do with this page because I have a million things running through my mind right now. Look at this. Like, I almost want to make a copy of it so I can have a second chance in case I were to like accidentally ruin it or something. So that is truly stunning. So after much deliberation, I actually decided to turn this into a little accompaniment journal, like a mini journal that's going to go into a larger ocean themed journal. I ended up folding it on its side and cutting out the circle. Um, I can't remember exactly what it said, but I didn't really like the text, so I replaced it with some beautiful digital images I had of shells and pearls. I added some little faux pearls to the sides because I thought how perfect. Um, I went and sewed around a little pamphlet right here around the circle to kind of emphasize the digital image portion. I actually sewed these pages in, and of course I added some lace to the front and the back, which I thought made it just look that much more vintage and chic. Now, if you don't like the shine, you can always go ahead and take some clear gesso to your magazine images that will really tamper that shine down nicely. So if the shine turns you off, don't let that deter you from using your magazines. I just drew a little octopus here. So in some more digital images for some extra journaling room, and I used an image from the Oyster advertisement, excuse me, and made a little pocket. I used another image to kind of make a flip up journaling card. I stapled it and did cover it with washi tape. If you don't like the look of staples, there are so many different ways to hide them. Washing is an easy one, and I just think this is going to be a lovely little addition to the ocean journal that I'm currently working on. I added another pocket and a little tag. I am so in love with this, and it started with a silly little story about oysters. I found some more text. This thrive and grow in this article about oysters is going to be perfect for some sort of personal development page I'm working on, and this nice reef system, or nice reef rather, I'm going to use it as nice reef. It's definitely going in my dive journal. And just because you don't like the advertisement or you don't like, well, that it is an advertisement, so don't discount the little elements, okay? So look at that cute little chicken rooster. We're definitely going to harvest that. Here's another perfect example of cropping something down. I've used people in my journals before to make paper dolls. I'm trying to think. They may actually be good paper dolls. The way her arm is, she's kind of like tilted in, so that may make this a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to skip that. And they're also kind of big for a paper doll. Not impossible, you totally could, but I think I'm going to crop her pants and do something different with these. So I love that pink pinstripe. I love it. I'm probably going to crop out her top too and use those blue pinstripes for a project. Nice. This is literally as easy as it gets. Remember that pink pinstripe outfit that that girl had on in the blue? Like the blouse the other lady had? I just backed that with paper, with some paper cardstock to make it a little tougher and went ahead and just used my punch to punch it out. I did do some other, like I collaged some leftover papers as well onto the cardstock to fill in the gaps. And I love these punches. Look at the negatives. So I just adore these. Look at the scalp punches. You could make these into little postage stamps or just little bits, decorate them, maybe with some smaller paper punched images. There are so many things you can do with these, and this is like you can use these in your journals as is totally, or they can be a great base for something else. You would literally never know what this image came from. So this is another example of cropping a specific pattern that you like to create something entirely different. And I personally love having a bag of these on my desk as a go-to that I can just pull from to decorate my journals and have little bits to decorate at the ready. All right, maybe we'll call it quits on this magazine then. Oh my gosh. Yes. This is literally the cutest postcard I have ever made. I just cropped the image a little bit, pasted it down to some thicker cardstock, sewed around the borders. I wrote postcard, did a little bit of I drew some lines, and of course I will fill that in with some journaling and put a postage stamp up top. But seriously, look how cute this is, and it really required like no work on my part. On to our Nat Geo magazine. I think it's obvious why I would want this cover somewhere in my junk journal, and I may even want to make an entire like cover out of this. This image is stunning. What a nose, right? Okay, definitely this text, let's wonder, that's going to be a caption for some kind of journal layout. I decided to use this text in the journal layout I have my dog, his gotcha day. I took him to the park for a lot of sniffs and exploration time, and we always end up wandering off the beaten path because he is obsessed with finding all of the best sniffs, so I thought that that would be perfectly appropriate. Otherwise, I love this layout of all of the pictures from his gotcha day. That is him howling to us, singing to him, happy birthday. Is that not precious in his ducky pajamas? He is something else, that dog. This picture of the Alps absolutely has to be a postcard. I think this may have been the most gorgeous image in the entire magazine. I didn't have to do anything with it. I just cropped it slightly. I mean, it's breathtaking, right? Oftentimes when I use an image from a magazine and there are no captions or text about that specific place or image, I will just do a little bit of journaling, and a postcard is a perfect way to do that. Of course, you can just copy and paste the text onto the postcard if it comes with a description, but I just think it looks a lot more special and complete if it's in your own handwriting. So that's exactly what I did here, and of course, I will just have to add a stamp to the top there. Another stunning image, right? But instead of turning this one into a postcard because of its shape, I decided to turn it into a classic sort of Polaroid. See the white space up at the top and the bottom and on the sides? And in this case, I did use some of the text header or a caption rather than on the bottom of the Polaroid. And of course, you can sew all around it and decorate it a little bit more, and use the entire back to do a little bit of journaling. I oftentimes do love using my journals as exploration books, and sometimes I do like having pages that are informative, so I will just use the information I get either online or from the magazine itself to just do a little bit of journaling about whatever it is that I learned about. I absolutely love the purple pattern of her dress, so I decided to make some postcards out of it. Or postage stamps rather, sorry. I backed her dress with some cardstock and simply put some stamped ephemera on it. There is a paper punch of a bow, the Eiffel Tower, a butterfly. I did add some stickles though. I wish I would have used a color other than purple. They didn't show up that well. So here's the paper punch butterfly. Added some stickles to that. You could definitely add some like faux postage stamping on your stamps, you know what I mean, to kind of give it that like sent through the mail look. I didn't think it would show up very well, but you could even use that stamp and stamp it in white gesso. And I do end up doing that in a later project. I'll show you the results. I love these a lot. I did find that picture of the herd in Africa stunning. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to turn this into, whether it be a journaling card or some kind of Polaroid maybe. Either way, a lot of the pieces of ephemera I'm showing you I plan to put into a travel journal, an armchair travel journal to be exact, which I will talk about in a later video. I have big plans for that. If you're curious, I used an image from the page next to it. Again, that's the herd, another picture of the herd. So here you can see I have some bubbling. I didn't do the best job of gluing everything down. You definitely want to use a glue stick. No wet glues for this. But then the step that I skipped was maybe taking a credit card or a bone folder to really get all the bubbles out. I didn't do the best job, but nevertheless, I still love this very much and ended up going around it with some embroidery floss to create some stitching, faux stitching, and it created this really nice effect. I love it so much. It just looks so handmade. I'll have to, add a postcard or an addressee and do a little journaling to the back if I do decide to make this a postcard, but really I'm loving this. I also plan on putting this into my armchair travel journal. If you're really curious about what I am talking about, stay tuned. We will talk about that in an upcoming video. These old treasures were excavated and are now in a library or a museum, rather, in London. They're kind of like what I would call morbid curiosities, a ball and chain. These are some dentures here made from human teeth, kind of spooky. I may be using one of these in my morbid curiosities Halloween journals. I'm thinking, or maybe my armchair travel journal. I have yet to decide. Remember how I was talking about using or doing stamping on darker colored images? Well, I had a little ink left over on my stamp, but I painted over the stamp with some white gesso, and that really helped create this visible stamp pattern on the dark print. And it's not a crisp image, but I don't know. I really like the way that looks. I never thought to stamp gesso itself before, and especially on dark backgrounds, this turned out so much better than any colored ink would. So this is another option if you're trying to do some stamping on dark images, especially shiny images like magazine images where stamping may not show well at all. Or you can just crop out the image and put it on like white cardstock like I did here and stamp regularly around it. I did add the text because otherwise you'd be like, what the heck is that? And I thought it was pretty cool. A Roman head, probably of a goddess, and usually I like to stamp off the page because it gives it more character. That way it looks a little bit more realistic, like it actually was a stamp, but it actually did go through the mail. Pretty cool, right? These are some more pieces of ephemera I made for my armchair travel journal. This image is still from that Nat Geo magazine, and I thought it was so cool. So in this little town, there are these people who celebrate. They have parades and music, and I don't know, I just thought this picture was so charming and delightful. Of course, I added the text to the bottom to give it context and so that I could go back later and tell exactly where this took place because I probably will put this in my armchair travel journal. I cropped these images of that little town. That satellite or overhead view is just spectacular. It's so lush. And it just really gives you perspective for the size of the town and just the kind of landscape that they have there. And I did turn these into postcards and added some text. For context, I think I actually made a little booklet out of the images I had left. This is a piece of ledger this guy was holding up. I think listing, if I'm not mistaken, some of his family members, like lineage, genealogy stuff. I added a map of Romania. This is where the little town is. I did a little stamping, and I will probably write about the area because, again, this is going to be an explorative journal that this is going into. This armchair travel journal I'm working on, it's probably going to be one of the coolest journals I've ever made. I used just some scrapbook paper that I had to sew it together. I sewed the pieces here and just folded them. So this is going to be like a little accordion notebook that folds out just like that. And that will go in the pocket of a journal. This is another blurry picture that was taken, and I love it. I turned it into a postcard. I added some gold gilding wax, and I added some washi to the top and the bottom, and I used my label maker to create a caption that says blue skies, and I officially made it a postcard. In case you were wondering, you can literally make anything into a postcard. All you have to do is crop the image where you think you have your focal point and back into something sturdy and cut it out and do some writing on the back. You guys can tell I love my postcards. It's just a perfect way to keep an image intact in its entirety and basically use it to add extra room to write in your journal. A postcard is always the way to go. You can literally never go wrong. Another postcard, I just thought this image of the blurred trees was so cool. I think it was actually taken through a humidified lens. Like they also took an image of a glacier in the same magazine, and the lens was like iced over, and it made for this blurred, just beautiful, surreal look. So I just added some other nature themed stamps and added a couple areas to the back to officially make this postcard. That horse is all there. I fussy cut him out. I wasn't sure what to do with him, but I thought he was stunning. And in my poor attempt to paint a background, this is what I ended up with. Not my best work, but you know, at least he kind of has a background. I will probably do a little bit more to this journaling card. I'm not quite happy with where it's at right now, but you know, I guess it's a good starting point. But it just goes to show you, you can take any image you want and use it to create a focal point and work it into a background by collaging in the back, or creating your own background by painting, adding it to a journal layout, whatever you see fit. I adore these black and white images. I used my label maker to put, well, I knew these were taken in downtown New York City. I didn't know the date, so I just made something up. But look how adorable that is. I made them into a postcard, of course. This next one, I added a caption. This is a black and white picture of the graffiti on the subway system, and I just used the stamped image that said Discover. I went over it in black. I just wasn't happy with the visibility of some of the stamped ephemera in the background. Um, and again, another postcard. So I thought those black and white images were just absolutely magical. So I decided to create some more Polaroids from them. I was very careful to try and get all of the lumps and bumps out, and I used my label maker to just make up an approximate date for where I thought when this picture may have been taken. I may be way far off, but that's okay. I haven't put anything on the back of these Polaroids yet, but they'll be perfect to add some extra journaling room to on the back. I want to show you what I did with one of them. These images are just, some of them are so, I don't know, just so hauntingly beautiful. I was like, I wonder what those people are thinking and what event that was taken at. So for these, so for these, I made postcards out of them. The picture of that barge was obviously taken in New York City. I sewed around the edges. I do the faux handwriting thing where you kind of think of something and you start writing in cursive and you sort of make it look like a word, but it's not really legible words, if you know what I mean. And that kind of takes the pressure off if you want it to look like a postcard, a handwritten postcard, but you don't know what to write. Faux writing. I know it has a name, I'm just not sure what it is. So if you know what I'm talking about, can you drop me a comment in the comment box and tell me what it is? The cursive kind of faux writing where you're thinking of something, but the words aren't actually legible. I thought that was so cool, and all I can think of right now is hieroglyphics. I think that's why I'm having an mental block, and obviously it's not hieroglyphics. Look at all those people. Same concept there, and I just used one of my faux postage stamps. I actually put a real made-up address. Beautiful, right? That map I pulled out was that of a subway, and they basically plotted the areas of New York and what other languages are spoken, and I thought it was just really, really cool. So I just made journaling cards by cropping these magazine images out. Again, it looks like a map on a subway system, but it's sort of the languages, some of the languages I've never even heard of, which I thought was really cool. So again, I'll probably use some of these in my travel journals. They're perfect for journaling cards, and the colors were just really, really bright and popped against that black background and popped even more against the white cardstock. There's something that just makes these look so much more polished when they're up against the thick white cardstock. Again, I didn't do a very good job of getting the bubbles out. I will try and do better next time. But this I thought was so cool, and I added some text to the bottom, and there was a bunch of white space. So I just added some watercolors and bled them in to kind of make everything pop. And I love how this came out. Before we move on, I just wanted to show you some other images that I harvested from Nat Geo. Look at this Taki. So I had no idea what this was. This is apparently a sword that's made. It's an intricate sword that can take years to make, actually. And they make these in Japan, some of the most incredible craftsmen ever. And I wrote a little bit about the actual process they use to make these. I just thought that was really incredible. I'll probably use this in my travel journal on the section that I do on Japan. This is just a beautiful landscape, this one. I'm not sure exactly where this is, but this guy is too cool for words. Looking at like how perfect. You don't really need to add anything else to this. He is just like perfect in his own right. That's what I love about these. Some of these images are just so spectacular. You don't need to do anything to them. Like, I mean, look at this guy. I thought this was just really, really cool. I made this into a postcard, of course, but I wanted some context, so I added some text at the bottom. Stunning, right? Again, these plant images really require nothing else, so I just left them, or well, I backed them with cardstock and sewed around them and left them as is because they were just too pretty to mess with. And this lovely lady right here, I turned her into a Polaroid. I also didn't want to mess with her too much, so I just cropped this photo of her holding the photos of the flowers in a frame and just left her as is. As you guys probably know, I love anything that has to do with the ocean. So when I saw these fish themed or sea themed creatures, I absolutely had to cut them out and do something with them. I basically cut these, well, I fussy cut the images out and back them onto cardstock that I had watercolored over, that I just swiped over, like basically swatched the paint to make kind of hues. And like I didn't cover all of it. Some of these I know, well, you know, I left some white space and then went around the image with some charcoal pencil to really make them pop. And obviously I didn't even know what they were supposed to be, but like I just found these like absolutely magical, like little journaling cards. I tried to swatch the or keep to the theme of the colors of the images that I cut out. Like, look at these. I assume they're sardines. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're sardines. Like, I guess it seems silly to have a sardine journaling card, but how pretty is that? I can't wait to put these in my ocean themed journal. This is supposed to be one of those things like you hang your jackets on and stuff. I got rid of the hook and I just fussy cut out the fish. Obviously, it has some screws. I'm not so sure about the color choice that I swatched for the background, but still, I like it. I adore these, especially as a set altogether. I did something weird, like some weird swatch pattern in the back, and again, I have no idea what that's supposed to be, but I love the nautical themes of all of these, and I can't wait to use them in my journals. Um, I think that one right there has to be my absolute favorite. I had so much fun with this one. This Torani beverage sauce advertisement, I thought, how cool would it be to fussy cut out the image of the sauce or drizzle, whatever it is. Some of the text, cut it out, go around it with watercolor, and make like a booklet out of it, like a drink recipe booklet. And then I went around the drinks with watercolors to really try and make them pop with corresponding colors. And I put together this accordion style recipe book by just taking some washi tape and, I left a little bit of the gap in between two pages so that the pages can easily hinge back and forth. And I put recipes on both sides. You could easily do this for a few of them and leave a couple of pages blank so you can add more drink recipes as you go. Drink recipes are plentiful in these kinds of magazines, and of course, you could find them online or even handwrite them in. And of course, you can always add to this, right? I didn't really leave myself any extra room here, but had I guess I could be cut off a little bit of this. You can always add to your own recipe book. I have recipes on the front and the back. Like, how cool is this? I even have a QR code, like for more recipe videos, the QR code to their website. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty nifty. I would have never thought to put this in my journal, but I think I'll put it in my 365 journal, where it's kind of like an art journal scrapbook that I was showing you earlier, where I keep my memories and some of my most favorite things. And it's just an amalgamation of things that represent me, how I'm feeling at the time, what I'm doing with my life, and like I said, some of my favorites. I think this may be one of my absolute favorite pieces of ephemera that I made throughout this entire process. I took those little paint buckets and made paint swatch cards and splattered the cardstock that I back this with. Of course, I splattered it when or before I glued down the magazine pieces, because otherwise the magazine pieces will get wet and bubble when they warp, so just keep that in mind. But I splattered it with the approximate color that matched the description: inviting whites, chalky greens, inky blacks, moody blues, for example. See, if you were creative about it, like, whoever would have thought to use paint buckets in their journals? But I adore these Swatch cards. The other thing I was thinking, like, what if you use those paint buckets? Think of the shape, the circular shape. Like, wouldn't they be cute as buttons? The like, there's so many things you can do with these, aside from the fact that they're paint buckets. I think the only thing that may have made these a little bit better is by sewing around them. I don't know, but I just like them so much. I kind of wanted to keep them as is. Of course, you can journal on the back, dusty taupes. I love this so much. So the possibilities are endless, right? So, like, you may think it's such a boring image, but then think about how you can crop it or alter it or group it together with something, or use it in a layout and give it new life. I backed them with some decorative cardstock that I had. I sewed the belly band, and like, I didn't even care about, like, I kind of like the off the page look. I added some stamp sentiments with a butterfly on each of these, and added some lace applique up top. And oh my gosh, I can't wait to use these in my journals. They're absolutely beautiful. You can use them as belly bands, pockets, tuck spots, bookmarks. I think these are absolutely fabulous. So this right here has to be one of the most random layouts I've ever made, but I love it. It just goes to show you, use the image to inspire you. I never would have thought to make a layout like this otherwise. It all started with that feeling salty text, and based on that sticker, I knew that that layout, like, the words had to go with the layout. They had to be combined into a layout somehow, which is what I did. I cut out the words feeling salty, and put that over the top. And I swatched some really pretty watercolor paints and added some salt over top of it while it was wet to create that effect. Isn't that a beautiful effect? So once it dried, all you do is brush the salt off, and then I took those different kinds of salt and fussy cut them out and created journaling cards out of them. Okay, really, really cool, right? I added a quote here: take life with a grain of salt, a slice of lemon, and a shot of tequila. I added number 1 here to this pocket, did some stamping over top of it, then cut out all of the descriptions of each of the types of salt, and then added them to book page. I adjusted the back so that there would be plenty of, or I gessoed, sorry, I said adjusted. I gessoed the back so that there would be plenty of extra writing room, and each different kind of salt has its own journaling card with some gesso on the back that can be written on. And I put them all in a pocket and added one of my little negative punch out butterflies. And I put the cure for anything salt, water, sweat, tears, and the sea. I don't know. I think that actually may be true, and I love the ocean, so I just felt like it fit perfectly in this journal. Never did I ever imagine I would be making a journal layout about salt, but somehow the magazine images just absolutely spoke to me. The painting is gorgeous. I've never added salt to watercolor paint before, and the effect is so startling, it's magical. If you've never done it before, I recommend it for sure. I'm in love with this layout. It's so weird, but it's so cool, and it's like it was meant to be here, right? And these are just some little additions I found at the bottom of my pile. One, I think, is from a magazine, like a portrait on the wall. These obviously were transformed into buttons. I just punched holes in them after backing them with cardstock, put some cording through them to kind of make it look like a button. And then this is obviously the pattern of roof, but I thought it also made for a great button. I set some eyelets, and can't wait to put it down on a page. Before we go, I just wanted to show you guys a system that I now use to gather and store my pieces of cutout magazine images. I have been really trying to use my magazines more and more and harvest images to use in various projects. Now, this system is far from perfect, but I find that if I at least sort them into pockets by either season, or let's say people or animals, locations, people that I'm going to use for my paper dolls, maybe maps. If I at least sort them into things like that, it allows me to have a system where I can go back and sort of find the general kinds of images that I'm looking for. And I find that I'm actually a lot more likely to use the images that way, instead of having them piled up in a scrap bin on top of each other. So, they're also really fragile. So when you're kind of like, when they're just like all folded up and kind of bunched together, they tend to rip and wrinkle easily. And I just find that keeping them in the dividers like this keeps them flat and in really good condition. So again, it's not a perfect system, but it at least allows me to find what I'm looking for. And I found that since I've at least started sorting my images into basic categories, I actually tend to use them a lot more in my crafting. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope this inspired you to go back through those old magazines and maybe look at those images in a different light and consider actually using them. There are so many ways to transform what seem like ordinary images into something spectacular that we can use in our journals, and it is way too often forgotten and neglected craft supply. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you want to see more videos like this from Ink and Papyrus, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you the next time.